All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to December 14th. And today we have Tim Wendelboe again.
Hello.
And my video was on the fritz, so we get full screen Tim, which is never a
Hello.
bad thing.
I should have
Uh,
just shaved.
yeah. All right. So the 14th, tell us what we're get to taste today.
Well, today you're going to taste a lot of floral flavors and maybe some kind of tangerine flavors. I find this particular one to also have this kind of sweet papaya flavors. It's quite a different coffee from the other one we had on the 12th, which was a Pacamara. But it's grown by the same producers, Marysabel Caballero and Moises Herrera in Chinacla, La Paz in Honduras. And this is a geisha variety. So I'm pretty sure everyone knows what a geisha is by now.
Well, yeah, most people, but you know what? That's the fun thing about the calendars. There's a lot of people who don't regularly drink specialty coffee.
Ah, great.
So it's sort of a really nice sort of informative thing for a lot of people who haven't tasted all these varieties. So you can explain a little bit about what a geisha is, because I'm sure there's a
Yeah.
lot of people who've actually never heard of it who bought the calendar.
I guess long story short, I think it was around 2004 or 5 when there was a family who had a farm in Panama named Petersons. The farm is Hacienda La Esmeralda. And they they decided to separate their coffee on their farm because they had different varieties. And back then, that wasn't very common to separate. You know, everyone was just growing whatever they had and just mixing it up and selling it bulk into the markets. And there was a Best of Panama competition for the coffee growers there. So, you know, international jury trying to find the best coffees in Panama and then auctioning it out afterwards. And the Petersons decided to separate their varieties and enter them, or kind of taste them all and then enter the best ones. And they found one variety that tasted amazing, and at least they thought it tasted amazing, and entered it, and it kind of blew everyone's mind in the jury that year. And that turned out to be the geisha variety. And it has ever since set records on auctions. I'm not updated, but you know, I think they've reached the highest is like $2,000 per pound or something, where you know the market price for commodity coffee is $1.30 at the moment. So that's quite a remarkable difference. This is a Ethiopian variety. Like, I mean, all coffee originates from Ethiopia, Sudan, and Kenya. It's in the forest there, like at least Arabica coffee. But this particular variety has kind of been taken out of an area close to Benchmaji in Ethiopia, where I mean there are several villages called Geisha or Gesha or something in Ethiopia, but they think it's from kind of that area, and then was taken to. I don't really remember. I think it was taken to Costa Rica, and then it spread from there. But it's a variety that doesn't produce a huge amount of cherries. And it's also it doesn't have a great root system, so it's quite sensitive to drought and stuff like that. So it didn't become, yeah, it's fragile, yes. So it didn't become so popular, you know, because before people were more concerned about yields and production rather than quality. So at least that's what we think in modern times. So when the Petersons discovered this, you know, everyone saw the prices they were getting for this variety. Everyone wanted to plant it, and of course there are limited ways you can get seeds. So I very often find that people say they have geisha, and then you taste it, and it doesn't look like geisha, it doesn't taste like geisha. So that's very often the case, but it is becoming more and more common in around different producing countries because farmers travel and they get seeds, and you know. That's how it works. So these particular seeds were given to Marysabel and Moises by one of their coffee buyers, and it is seeds from the Esmeralda farm. And I think, you know, it tastes very different than the geisha you can get from the Esmeralda farm. I think the Esmeralda geisha is even more kind of vibrant and intense in flavor, but a little bit more light-bodied. Whereas I think this still, it really depends, but this has a lot of intensity as well, but maybe not as much. And I think the body is a little bit bigger, and you can get this kind of slightly herbal flavor, which you don't tend to get in the Panamanian geishas. So with herbal, I mean like you can have like notes of green bell pepper or something in the aftertaste of the coffee.
Mm-hmm.
What's funny is that Moises, he doesn't want to plant his, because he has a lot of land, so but he doesn't want to plant everything with geisha. He wants to keep it, you know, as a small production, because he prefers to drink other coffees majority of the time, and then when he kind of wants something special, he will drink a geisha.
Yeah.
So that's kind of his philosophy, and he also kind of wants to keep it a little exclusive. But we found that he's planted a geisha in different parts in the area where he has farms, and not all of them taste great. And we can even go in having picked coffee from the same trees, but just different days, because, you know, we have cherries on the trees that are not ripening at the same time.
Yeah.
So normally a farmer will pick maybe 4 or 5 times during a season. And then we started separating them and tasting them individually to kind of select the best lots. We started that, I think, 2 or 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it's remarkable how big difference it can be. It can be anything from like a very average kind of nutty, more like commercial coffee flavor, and then you have this super perfumey, very intense geisha. So I actually selected the best lot we bought for you.
Oh, thank you.
The reason is we had a very, very small lot. It was 120 kilos. So
Yeah.
they actually gave it to us, the 4 best boxes, so to say, and then we bought some more. And you know, the other ones are really good as well. It's just this one was a little bit more intense. So
Yeah.
this is a wash process. So demucilaged, fermented, washed, and then dried on raised beds like the Pacamara a couple of days ago. And also Moises is doing the milling. So we actually, not only did we separate the different pickings this year, but we also decided to do a special screen sorting. So we didn't buy the lowest screens, and we also removed the biggest screens actually. So, and that's
So the
just
screen sorting,
because
that's bean size you're talking about, the big beans and little beans?
yeah, and the reason is this particular variety has kind of more oblong beans.
Mm-hmm.
And if you mix those with smaller round beans and a little bit bigger beans, it becomes quite hard to roast evenly. So we've always found that we have to kind of compromise between, you know, slightly roasty or slightly underdeveloped on the geishas.
Yeah.
Whereas I think this year it was easier for us to roast. And I think we got a little bit more sweetness out because of the more kind of narrow screen size or size of the beans.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always kind of room where you can improve a green coffee. And it's kind of, as a roaster, you think, oh, it must be the profile, and you have to work on the profile. And that might not be the actual reason why the coffee is not tasting at its best. It could be also like screen sorting, or if the coffee is dried unevenly or something like that. That can also cause problems later in the chain of where you kind of roast or brew the coffee.
Yeah, I think that's something, all these small details are things that lots of people don't necessarily even know about, that I think is well worth appreciating. That first, picking a farm that puts a lot of work into their product and beans that are the top quality beans, and then pick one of the 5 pickings, the best one of that, and then pick the right size of beans inside that again. It's a pretty small percentage of the beans that are.
Yeah, and I think that kind of sums up what people call specialty coffee, what that really is. It's not made by coincidence, you know. It's always a lot of work and a lot of selecting and sorting in every single step. So and then of course they have to sell the other coffee as well, but that becomes a cheaper product with a lower price. So there's different ways of producing coffee, and I think this coffee is one of the more interesting geishas that I've tasted, because it has a very kind of specific character that I haven't tasted anywhere else, and that's this kind of herbalness and that kind of papaya flavor you don't very often get. And people tend to criticize geishas for being a little light-bodied, but I think this one, if you brew it well, it can be really, really nice and sweet and rich. Sometimes you can have a little bit slow drawdown, that like if you brew V60, it can take a little bit more time for the water to pass. What I recommend to kind of prevent that is to be a little bit more aggressive on the pouring in the beginning. So pour more water in the beginning, and try not to stir too much in the slurry, and don't grind coarser, because that's only going to lead to under extraction.
Cool. And would you use the same 6 gram as used for the Pacamara?
Yeah, for sure. I think especially on this coffee, it's with a little bit lower dose, you can get much more of this kind of open floral flavors instead of kind of making it too intense. I enjoy it better when I drink it a little bit weaker, actually. So
Yeah.
the Pacamara 2 days ago, it's such an intense coffee anyway, so it doesn't really matter if you're going on a lower dose. But that's what I would do. Yeah, 60 grams per liter for sure. And don't be afraid of actually trying to go a little bit finer on this as well. Although the drawdown time can be a little bit longer, don't panic. You know, it's quite normal with Ethiopian coffees and geishas, I think.
What's the abort time you would put? How long is too long?
I mean, that's really up to the flavor, and it really depends on your paper filtration system. Like what type of paper filter you're using. I highly recommend using as hot water as possible for all our coffees. So, you know, boil the water and make sure it's as hot as you can get it when you brew. That's when you get the most flavor out of these light roasts. So just, you know, make sure you don't stir too much in the slurry and so on, because when you do that, the fines kind of tend to fall down quicker, and it kind of blocks the filter. And then that's when you start to have problems.
Great. Well, this was super informative, and we're going to enjoy this day.
Hope you enjoy it.
Special coffee. All right. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.
And thanks for being in the calendar.